I'm going to ask Commissioner Thomas if he will lead an invocation and followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this opportunity we can join together and just do our county's business. We ask you to just be present with us tonight. Give us guidance, give us wisdom, give us a sense of working together for the betterment of our county. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Motion to approve the agenda, Mr. Chairman. Second.
We have a motion made and second to approve the agenda. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Okay. Do we have any citizens to speak? Don't have any right now.
Second.
Not for the first one? Okay. Okay, this is the first of two required public hearings on the Wakulla County budget for fiscal year 2014 and 2015. If you wish to speak during the public hearing portion of this meeting, please step forward at the appropriate time. The tentative aggregate millage rate is 8.5000 mills, which is 2% less than the aggregate rolled back millage rate of 8.6731 mills.
The time is 5:03 p.m. September 9th, 2014. The proposed Board of County Commissioners of Wakulla County tentative countywide millage rate is 8.5000 mills, which is 2% less than the countywide rollback millage rate of 8.631 mills.
I'm opening up the floor.
6731. Sorry, my dyslexia.
8.6731.
Yes.
Okay. I'm opening up the floor for a motion to begin the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
Okay. At this time, the individuals that have turned in a speaker card to the clerk, they're allowed to speak. Well, we don't have anybody who's turned in the speaker cards. Okay, Florida statutes required the board to address the tentative millage rate before addressing the tentative budget. The board must vote on the millage rate and the budget separately. I will now entertain the following motions. Okay, the first one is I'm going to ask a motion to approve the Board of County Commissioners a fiscal year 2014-2015 tentative countywide millage rate of 8.5000 mills.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion made and second to approve the Board of County Commissioners tentative countywide budget of 8.5000 mills. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion passes. Okay, the second one is I need a motion to approve the Board of County Commissioners the fiscal year 2014-2015 tentative countywide budget as presented by the administrator on July 15, 2014, and as amended through the agenda process today.
So moved. Second.
A motion made and second. All in favor?
Whoa.
There's got a discussion now.
Okay. Do we have a discussion?
Yeah.
Yep.
Commissioners, on your agenda item, note that all the changes that from the last time the budget was presented to you are listed on the changes. They're listed in the agenda item.
Where's that? This?
Agenda item, yes.
This?
Hmm?
This is Boston Health Road paving.
That's the second item.
Well, there's nothing in here about any changes.
It's in the
On the
agenda
computer.
item. Yes.
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 Go.
You brought your computer.
So, could you cite these changes?
Sure, I will be glad to. I will be glad to. In the general fund contribution to We Care Network was increased by $1,000. Collections total budget was increased by $582 due to an adjustment in the collections coordinator hourly rate. As a result of these changes, the cash forward line item is now $433,271, and the reserve line item is $240,170. Library state aid grant fund estimated grant revenue amount increased to $100,734, and the capital outlay library books line item increased $17,433. Building fund reserve line item was increased to $50,000, resulting in an increase in cash forward line item to $173,502. Mosquito control grant fund estimated grant revenue increased to $31,500, and operating supplies line increased $13,000. BP Restore Act fund increased $10,000 in contracted services line item for services related to Gulf Consortium membership. Fine and forfeiture fund $150, transfer to constitutional officer line increased $15,000 to fund legal services and negotiations for a contract securing payment for a minimum number of ICE inmates. Cash forward line item increased $453,112. Road Department 2-cent gas tax fund 162 CT. Equipment that was scheduled to be purchased in the current fiscal year will not be available until FY 2014-15, resulting in an increase in cash forward line item of $155,000 and an increase in capital outlay machinery and equipment line item of $155,000. Fire MSBU Fund 180, MSBU revenue increased $4,416 based on current year budget and the projection of 1% population growth. Reserve line item increased $21,752. Tourist Development Fund 188, advertising promotional activities line item decreased by $500, and postage and freight line item increased by $500. And Solid Waste Fund 440 DEP 01, estimated grant revenue increased $20,321 based on the current fiscal year award and anticipating the same award for 2014-15. The landfill monitoring line item increased $20,321 to offset the additional revenue. That's all of the changes.
Thank you.
From the tentative budget.
From the tentative budget, that's right.
So is now the time for discussion?
Yes.
So I'd like to go back to the item of animal control and ask for your plan and how the $10,000 that you propose to use for animal adoption is going to be used. And we'll start with that. Thank you.
You got another one?
Oh, did I skip you? I'm sorry, Ralph.
Yeah, Ralph, I already got one.
I'm sorry. You already got one?
Ralph does it anyway.
I'm sorry.
He's got a memory.
Excuse me. I don't know why I skipped you. Before you, Commissioners, is a brief business plan for the animal adoption services program. One of the things that was brought up that's kind of a point of confusion was it was thought that we're pulling funds out of the $10,000 out of the general fund. That is not true. The offset to this will be the revenues from the adoption. We got $10,000 in revenue, $10,000 in expenses. So therefore, the idea is this fund to fund itself or portion of itself. So anyway, I just want to make that clear up front. But
I thought of a good analogy for that if I could. Say my daughter wants to go get a car, and she says, I want you to pay for it. It's going to be $200 a month, but I'm going to get a job, and I'm going to give you that $200 a month. So the $10,000 increase, it does increase the money spent, but there's also revenue to offset that money spent. I, Howard, also thought it was $10,000 in spending that was taken from somewhere else, but I was wrong.
Well, there's a $30,000 increase in animal control budget.
that's right.
So what is that for?
The majority of that is to take care of, we've had ongoing issues for the past 3 years of overtime due to the demand of call-outs. That takes care of that, as well as we have CHP and increases in retirement.
So for, how many people work in animal control as of this budget year?
I believe we have three, excuse me.
And the increase in CHP and retirement is going to account for close to $30,000?
Let me tell you what we got. Hold on. I was in general bringing that up.
$2,500.
Okay. To go down the line, we have $180 increase in regular salaries. That was due to us accruals, which are $180 in accruals. Same thing for hourly wages, $160. Flex wages, the same thing for accrual basis, $250. Overtime, we increased that by $4,517.
What page are you on?
I'm in the budget
You're not in
spreadsheet.
this? 91.
Yeah, you can go to 91. Holiday hourly wages, we increased those by $834. FICA tax, because of all those, went up $150. Retirement benefits went up $1,170. Health insurance went up $1,453. Contracted services, travel, telephone, and utilities, that went up by $5,250.
What is, why?
Hmm?
Why? Why did that travel increase $5,000 on that budget?
The travel is 50. We increased it by $50.
Oh, I thought you said 5,000.
No.
He lumped a few in there.
I lumped some in, but I'll go line by line. Telephone increased by $1,500. Water and sewer, $2,000. Excuse me, electricity, $2,000. Water and sewer by $1,500. No increases in maintenance and repair. Other current charges, $800. $2,000 for donation supplies, which is the part for the that you will be talking about in a little while. $10,000 for adoption supplies. Those two line items are directly associated with the adoption services, which is $12,000. That makes $12,000. Office supplies went up $150. Operating supplies $1,200. Fuel went up $2,500. Negative went down $100 in memberships and down $250 in operating equipment.
So what amount of money is being dedicated to adoption?
$12,000, and we've got $12,000 offset in revenue for that as well.
Okay, but we'll get to the offset in revenue in a second. The $12,000, how is that intended to be spent?
Well, if you'll turn to your handy dandy sheet I gave you, go to the second page, Finance and Accountability, and I'll read this out. The proposed 2014-15 budget includes 2 expense line items and 2 revenue line items in animal control. One is the donation supplies. It has a revenue and an expense, and the adoption supplies at a revenue and expense. The donation supplies revenue will account for cash donations given to animal control to be used for, this is where if I go to animal control and say, here's $100, take those funds, they'll take that cash donation and they'll go and buy $100 worth of either wormers, flea medicine, whatever that is for the care of the animals in an adoption center. This line item at the end of the year, we should spend no more than we take in. So the revenue will match that, just in donations, okay? Meaning you were donated $100, you spend $100, okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right, adoption services. Revenue will account for adoption fees paid by the public for adopted animals. The cost to vaccinate the adoptable animals will be charged to the adoption supplies expense line. That means you will have a revenue line item for adoption services and an expense line item for adoption services. We estimate that it will cost an average of $100 per dog to vet, spay and neuter, and we propose charging $150 per adoption. In a perfect world, we would be grossing $50 per dog. However, we do not anticipate this to be the case, and our intent is to break even. Monthly monitoring of the gross margin will occur. The margin alert will be set at 25% loss after the first quarter of operation, meaning that if we're losing at a greater rate than 25% of what we're of our expenses, that's when we'll come in and we'll say, wait just a minute, we're either doing something wrong, we've got to adjust it, we got to look at it, okay? So I'm giving ourselves a margin just in the startup, realizing the startup is always costly on anything, giving it a month to look at it, then that'll be our measurement tool moving forward. We do not anticipate making money at this. We have no illusions at that. But
Do you anticipate losing money?
We anticipate either breaking even or losing a little bit of money. We want to break even. We want to make money. We'll go in that tent. But I'm not going to come here and present to you guys
Right.
that we're going to make money.
What I'm asking, though, is how did you develop this model? What did you look at to develop this model? Did you look at other adoption centers and look at what their...
Ivanhoe gleaned information from other counties and other adoption facilities.
Well, you know, I think this is still troubling. We have a situation where we had to increase for overtime because of our staff being taxed, and now we're going to run an adoption center out in there without... Are we having a vet tech?
We currently, Ivanhoe, you may want to answer. Get up there.
Thank you, Commissioners. No, it does not include a vet tech. I think it's important to let you, as the Commissioners who make these decisions, and the public know that, no, this is not a money-making venture. Because there's not an adoption service in the county, and because people, from what I see, want it and need it and expect to pay for it, it's something that we need to do. It's something that they want to have.
I understand that.
Do we
with
have
all due
to?
respect, we forced an adoption agency to close its doors.
Commissioner Kessler.
We did. Excuse me for 1 second.
No, sir.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Kessler, I'm going to have to correct you because you keep referring to this. Chat made their own decision to leave. No one forced them to leave.
Chat was... Let me go back to the... And let me speak while I have the floor, Mr. Chairman. Okay, let me speak while I have the floor. Don't correct me.
Because you interrupted Ivanhoe, so
That's right.
since we asked her to
That's
speak,
right.
I'm going to allow her to finish saying, and then we'll refer back to you.
That's fine.
Go ahead.
Okay, this most important reason that we need to start adopting as a community is because we need access to low-cost spay-neuter vouchers. And in order to do that, we have to have data that says we've done X amount of adoptions per year, a certain percentage of your animal intake. When we go to make applications for grants, and there's worlds of money out there, Chat did it, Be the Solution has done it, we can't compete because we don't have any data. This is an effort with your approval to get our foot in the door and to try it on. We're not saying, you know, we're going to go in there 100% and we know exactly, you know, how it's all going to turn out in X and Y and Z. We're going to
Mr.
start
Chairman,
small.
I think the question was, does that number include a vet tech? That was the question.
No, it does not.
It does not.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Ivanhoe.
Okay. So let's get back to forcing out an adoption agency or not. Whether you like Chat, didn't like Chat, Chat was a volunteer organization, 501c3, that functioned in one form or another for 20 years in our community without any major problems that I am aware of, and I don't know if any of the board is aware of. Okay. After 20 years of operating in our community, they were handed a contract that would have been impossible for any agency to stay in business unless they had unlimited amount of funds coming in from big donors. It was an impossible contract. To just spay and neuter the 980 animals coming through the doors of animal control, we may not even have the resources of our own veterinarians in town to handle that number and have them do their private.
We won't be doing that, Dr. Kessler.
Well, in the contract, and in the contract that was sent out, I think, for the RFP, it states 85% for the first year and 90% for the second year of animals coming through the doors to be spayed and neutered. I mean, That's what it says.
I'd have to go back and look at the contract.
Well, I
Dr.
have
Kessler.
I have it here.
I've already put that out of my mind, so
You can-
Howard,
well,
I think the
over and done
operative
with.
word you used was. They're not, chat's not here. I understand
Well,
you don't like what happened.
I-
We're talking
I-
about point
yeah. I'm talking-
0.024% of the budget we're sitting here arguing about.
That's right.
0.024%.
It's more than 2.4 or 0.2% of the budget, Commissioner Merritt.
0.024.
Point zero. It's more than that. And I'd appreciate me finishing before you jump in. It's very important, animal control, and it's very important adoption services in our county. If we're going to start adoption services in our county, I want them to be successful. I don't want them to flop, okay? I see this as a recipe for failure. You guys may not see it that way. I've gone over these numbers for years. I've lived with these numbers. I watch these numbers. I know what is involved with running a shelter. No, you're not going to break even, and are you going to lose a little bit? You may lose a lot. And if you operate the way Chat did and provide not only what it was doing with its adoptions, but doing spay-neuter out of its own funding for the community, and buying capital things for both the animal control and its own adoption things, it was using a considerable amount of monies. That agency was treated very badly by us. Yes, that's water under the bridge. They are gone, okay? But when our county turned around and put out its RFP, the RFP included the same terms that they offered to Chat. And surprise, surprise, no takers. I want to see the county, if they want to be in a position of offering animal adoption services here in the county, to have a legitimate, a reasonable opportunity for success. If there is not a reasonable opportunity for success, I don't think we should be opening that adoption services that way. So I think that, you know, and I'm a little upset with this also for a plan to not even be online the day before this hearing. I think that's uncalled for, okay? But as far as playing, and another thing that upset me, our county administrator said he draws a hard contract, he plays hardball when he draws something up. I don't think we should be playing hardball with a group of volunteers that has served our community for 20 years. That's not the time to play hardball. I think we needed Chat, we lost Chat. But I don't want to see us fall on our face again, and that's what I'm upset about.
Any other parts of the budget? Everything else good?
Everything else good? No, I'm not going to comment on some of the other portions. I think there's still some problems in that budget of significance.
I'm willing to give him a chance. I sat down and talked to him about it, and he's, I guess, going to try it. If it works, fine. He set a negative 25% margin. That's a very easy target. If they lose 25% of the money, they'll come back to the board and say, do you want to continue to subsidize this, or do you want to go back to the way it was? And I think, from what I can tell, the reason they're trying to do it is to be eligible for grant funds, to do more spay and neutering, more capital projects, is my understanding. I don't think we're risking a lot. We're not taking 10 grand from road paving or from another department and giving it to him and saying, see if you can make this work. According to him, the most he could lose, how soon are you going to go back and look? A month?
Mm-hmm.
Basically, that'd be $1,000, just say roughly, and a 25% margin loss would be $250.
Well, yeah, we'll probably give it 2 months, because the first month naturally
Say he
got
loses
front loaded.
25% every two, that's $500. So we're risking, just say we're risking $1,000 to see if this will work. I can live with that.
On this second page, plus this first page, there's 18 different sources of funding that's been listed in this proposal. So the 10,000 or 30,000 you're referring to, that's the bare minimum that we would need for us to comply in order to apply for these other grant fundings, right, David?
That's right.
So that's 18 different funding sources that we could eventually do everything that you're referring to, Commissioner Kessler, through these 18 different, any one of them or all of these 18 different funding sources. So this that's been proposed is for us to be bare minimum to comply with it.
I wish you all luck with it. I hope it succeeds. I think it's going to be very difficult for it to succeed, especially since we don't have chat. Now you have twice the number of animals to deal with. You still have the hounds that are going to be coming in. You still have the pit bulls that are going to be coming in. They're not going to go away. And I don't think we've solved the problem by what we're doing.
Are those being dealt with today?
Yes,
Without an animal
they'll be
adoption
dealt with
center?
the same way.
Are y'all dealing with the pit bulls and
Yes.
what Dr. Kessler said?
They'll be dealt with the same way.
So I don't see how it's going to be any worse than it is today. And Howard, I hope you're not going to vote against the budget because of this one issue.
Well, I'll vote against the budget on many issues. This is just one of them.
Okay. Well, I guess at least 3 of us have to vote for a budget, although I will be called the House of Representatives, but anyway.
Okay?
Any more discussion?
On the budget in general,
Yeah.
or just this item? I have some as well. David, if you will clarify for us the timeline and the procedure for the new collections department. I see in the budget you're looking at a positive to the county of $12,000
Right.
by implementing that. What's the time frame, and are these other agencies, when are they going to have to change our agreement with them?
The time frame is we'll begin our probably advertise in October after final budget, advertise for the position. Then once we've secured that position, we'll transfer over the EMS, the lady that's working at EMS, we transfer it over to the collections department. Then we'll immediately work on the PST collections, work on the revenue. We've got to collect more revenue in EMS. That'll be for that. Then also we'll be taking over sewer billing at some point in the year. But then the next year is when we'll take over the sewer billing for the other 2 agencies that we.
So that won't happen in this current budget?
That won't happen, and the reason being is we anticipate, right now we bring in $900,000 a year in revenue in EMS, and I want to focus on that because I want to get that to about 1.3, 1.4. I believe there's from what we're looking at on accounts receivables, there's some more funds we can pick up there. So I want to concentrate on that this year, as well as get our program down for sewer billing, get all that down before we all of a sudden take a big slug. And plus we got to go through the PST. There's businesses that aren't paying the PSTs, and it's incumbent upon us to make sure they are. So we're already gathering data on that, so we're going to scour the earth on that.
What about River Sink Water?
River Sink Water as well.
Now, at one time there was, I'm sorry, Ralph. No, you go ahead. At one time there was a deal, I think, with Cleve's group to take over something he was doing in exchange for a...
Yeah, we got to work that out with ESG, but we're still going to do something along those lines.
So you're projecting a $12,000 savings this budget year, and not when you implement all of the billing?
That's right. When we implement all of the billing, we'll add $50,000 savings to the county.
So I would, I know you do this anyway in your budget meetings, but just same thing as we just talked about in animal control is we measure this along the way. If we find out that we've, because we're adding a considerable amount of expense here, and if we can't see a benefit right away from it, we need to measure that and figure out if that's going to be beneficial.
I wouldn't recommend this big of an increase if I didn't feel like there's money there that needs to be collected that's not being collected today.
Mr. Chairman.
Let's do the county.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and relating to the emergency services, ambulance, the accounts receivable out there,
Yes.
approximately that number is what?
Approximately 1.5, about 1.5, somewhere in that range.
And our goal is to, with our new system, is to collect how much?
We're gonna. My goal is to get somewhere between 1.2 and 1.3.
Let me ask a question about that accounts receivable. Does that include, I know you can bill Medicare, or Medicaid, whatever, $1,000 for an ambulance call, but they're only going to pay you a certain amount. Have you accounted for that in your accounts receivable?
That is accounted for, and there are other. We're going to look at other ways of getting some funds. We've discovered a couple other ways to get funds from Medicaid and Medicare. We're going to look at those, as well as we're going to be more aggressive on our going after insurance companies as well. So we've got to have. I mean, Ms. Shirley's doing a good job now. Don't get me wrong. We've got one person in charge of $900,000 worth of revenue in the county. What we've got to do is more analytical work on that and work with these agencies to get, you know, if I can get $10 more out of every Medicaid run we get, that's a huge amount of money. So and we do that for every run we get, I'm there.
Yeah, and I think I'd like to thank Commissioner Thomas for his comments on that, and also Commissioner Merritt. I think where Commissioner Merritt was going, and if I'm wrong, please correct me, is are the accounts receivable reflective of the expected return from the various agencies, such as Medicare, Medicaid, etc.?
Yeah, that's the reason I say the expected return is about 1.2 to 1.3
But I mean,
is what I'm wanting to get at.
You budgeted a
Right.
revenue of $100 from Medicaid, even if you're billing $500.
That's right, that's right.
Okay.
That's right, and I'm wanting to get that incremental $10, if you may.
So if you get 10% of what we're due, then you'll more than pay
Oh, yeah.
for that department.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is offset also by elimination of code enforcement too.
And what was the age of these accounts receivable?
We've cleaned those up now. They're about a year old now versus 10 years old. So we've cleaned all that stuff out.
Good.
If I can, next I'd like to, we've talked several times about the building department fees, and
Sure.
you know, I appreciate the building department is doing a great job, and they're probably the best department we have as far as our fund balance policy goes. I'd like to see us, instead of talking about it or kicking it down the road, we've budgeted about $6,000 in application fees on our permits. I recommend that we just go ahead and cut that. We've got $300,000 in building permit fees budgeted. I'd recommend that we cut that in half, so $156,000 cut out of it. And by doing that, I mean, all we're really doing is cutting into the fund balance. We're required to have $122,000 in there. We've got $538,000. So, I mean, if we cut $156,000, we're still way over where we're supposed to.
I don't think we can actually do that right at a budget hearing.
No, we have to justify all
I
that.
support what you're saying. You're
Yeah.
saying cutting permit fees.
Yeah.
I'm with you 100%, but I don't think we do
Yeah,
that at a budget hearing.
That's right.
Yeah,
We can't, that has to be done.
I agree with what
Well,
you're
if we've got
You can give us
a
that- you can
head
give us
nod
that
on that,
chart.
then that can be a direction they come back with a budget
right.
amendment.
I had a fellow call me today that was coming into the county. You may have had a call also, but he was coming into the county, and we were charging him a certain fee, and he was in government where he was coming from, so it was a little bit humorous that he wanted us to change our fees, but the fees around us were half what we were charging, and he was telling me about the different places. And
Well,
said,
I would argue with that, because when we change those fees, we're in competition with the other counties. Do we have some more room? Yes, we do. But if you'll notice also, I don't know if you've got it in there.
I
but
didn't say all the fees.
Yeah.
I said this
I
particular
know.
fee.
But if you'll notice, we are chewing down the fund balance currently, and I agree. We've talked about doing a fee. We got to do a fee study.
And
What
we
we're
have
at.
reduced it for the
That's
benefit of
right.
the public
That's right.
doesn't
And
know.
we've got some
We
more
have
work.
reduced it already, but
What I've heard a lot from James, the building official, is even with the minimum charge, like to do an AC swap out, or to change your door, theoretically, you're supposed to pay $60.
Yeah, we've.
And those are the things I'd personally like to target, is the small things that'll help the most people out, instead of just cutting them.
And that's what we've worked on, and realize we can only, we got to justify sending that person out there. But yes, we'll work on that. But also understand we're also spending money now on we had to spend money on a new computer system, so we're in the process of installing that now.
right.
So therefore, we're spending money. We're having to spend some money on that. I'd like to get that up and operational, and then I can switch over. And once I know what that number is, then we can start reducing
We
it.
had
But
a-
we'll go ahead and do the study. We've got the money here to do a study anyway. We'll go
We
ahead
had
and
a
do the study.
citizen who was charged $25 to take down a fence.
Yeah.
Can you use building fees to offset DPA costs?
I don't think so.
No, they have
From
to
one
say,
fund to the other.
Because that's another point of contention, is that change out your AC, first you gotta get a $30 DPA, then you gotta go to $60 permit, and they just add up,
Plus an application fee, I think.
If there's a way to get rid of
$5.
the DPA for certain items too, but that's not a budget issue.
Yeah, that's not a budget issue. We'll come back with you guys on that, but we'll go ahead and start the fee study.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to see, again, I know he's done it before, but our building department head to come back to the board with his suggestions of of areas that he
Mhm.
would think that would be appropriate for us to look at.
And we talk about that on a regular basis, and he's gathered his information, and we'll be glad to do that, because he and I talk about that. One of the problems we've had here, the good thing, this is a good problem to have, is our fees went down, but our building permits went through the roof. So
It's
it's
picking
all,
back up.
everything's picked back up, so we're that offset, we lowered it, but the amount of business that we're getting offset it.
Okay. So we agree that we'll come back and revisit that. And
Mhm.
Good. Next, Fund 160, the road department revenue.
Yes, sir.
Just question, in the different fuel tax, 7 cent is an increase of 13.1. I just don't understand that. Why are some going up and some going down?
Are you talking about in the revenue line items?
Revenue,
Or
yes.
the revenue line items?
Yeah.
Hold on just a second, for some reason this isn't.
I got
I mean,
something.
if somebody's buying fuel, I would think that they're all gonna either go up or go down and
I
be...
think Brent wants to
be
try and-
Well, I tell you, Greg, can you explain that one? Greg
Okay.
understands.
Brent,
Greg,
come on,
can you
Brent.
come up to the or they understand the fuel tax? That's a tough one.
Believe it or not, there's a different allocation. Some of them are more based on population, some of them are more based on the square miles in your county versus the whole state. All those gas tax things are a little bit different, so they don't rise and fall, in conjunction with each other like you would expect. And they also don't really rise as fast for the counties as they do for the state share, and that's been a source of contention for probably at least a decade with the Florida Association of Counties and the state, is, why can't we share this somewhat proportional? But that's the answer to that question, is they don't follow the same allocation between the state and the county.
They're not that revenue is not actually even based on the amount of gas or fuel sold in this county, right? It's just
Not-
statewide pulled together and then given
Some
back.
are and some aren't.
It's the numbers we get from the state.
Okay, thank you.
We don't budget. We budget that number, but we get information to budget that
See,
number.
that defies common sense, but that's the way government works.
Probably a lot of our citizens buy their gas in Tallahassee anyway, so it probably
Yeah.
works to our advantage.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same fund, but on the expense side, we've got a $25,000 increase on our professional services.
Okay. That's ESG.
Now, is that the contract with them
That's
is going...
That's a contract CPI increase.
is going up? Is that, I just opposed the increase on the Waste Pro, and, it's tough to do this because these guys do a good job for us, but is that an automatic thing, or is that something that we have discretion over as well?
That is an automatic increase. They waived that increase for a couple of years.
Okay.
But that is an automatic
It's
increase.
definitely in their contract.
It is
Okay.
definitely in their contract.
Very good.
And
I used to have a police job.
stated the contract, as far as the size of the contract and what that represents as far as a percentage.
It was 2%
2%,
increase.
right, flat.
And that's over a 2-year period.
Over
So it's
1 year.
basically a
1 year.
1 year.
1 year.
Well, 1 year, but they waived it the last.
They waived it. How many years did y'all waive it, Cleve? Your increase? 4
Yeah,
years.
So, 4 or 5 years,
Yeah.
let's say 4 years, 2%, it's a 0.5% a year.
Right.
Right.
Which I'm going to be bringing up something along those lines in a minute. I'm glad you said that.
Next thing I have is page 179, Fund 160. Our fund balance requires us to have $34,694, and we've currently got a surplus above that of $132,932.
Mm-hmm.
We also have loan principal and interest payments in there. I would prefer us to, let's take $100,000 of that and let's put it toward the principal. Let's keep it within the fund balance. I mean, this is a decision that we can make, that it doesn't affect revenue, it doesn't affect expenses, but it would help us retire that debt. We put $100,000, so we reduce the fund balance to the amount that it's required to be, and we retire $100,000 of that debt.
Would that pay it off, Ralph? What page
I
you
don't know
on?
the total, but I assume it should not pay it off, but at least we're...
Yeah, because what we do is we use the aggregated fund balance here, and we don't pay too much attention to each single one, but aggregated together, we have a $641,000 fund balance.
Right.
Yeah, we could pay $100,000 towards that.
I just think it's something that we can do that puts us in a better debt position.
Sure.
It doesn't affect your expenses on that line, and it keeps us within our debt policy,
It's also,
our fund balance policy.
going off what David said, this is going to reduce our reserve by 100,000, right? Because it's aggregated together,
Yes.
but it's not like it's a reserve that we could have spent on something else anyway.
Right.
And I don't have a problem with
And we're getting a little traction on, we're saving a little bit of money on the interest that we're paying off over the next year and subsequent
Is there a
years.
prepayment penalty?
Come on up, Greg.
What they're looking at, Greg, is the capital equipment payoff.
Yeah, they're looking at an aggregate number. Your 2-cent gas tax is the bulk of that fund balance, though, and that gas tax is restricted to capital purchases.
Right.
So we would have to check and see if we can actually pay down the debt service with those funds.
Good point.
But if it's allowable, everybody's
If it's
good.
allowable and legal, and
Mhm.
Greg's happy, then
Just
The
puts
road
us-
department alone, when you take out the 2-cent gas tax, it has $32,000 in fund balance. So we're just positive.
Okay.
So it's
get the- you
it's
don't-
the capital
don't want bad on
gas tax that is really
Right.
holding that whole fund together.
So who will be looking to see whether that's an option or not, and basically come back with the pros and cons?
We'll come back to that on the final budget.
Okay.
And this next one may apply the exact same scenario. Page 214, Fund 317. Let's see, well, actually,
1-cent sales tax.
I'm sorry, not the same scenario. You've got a reserve line of $166,939
And
on
Where are you?
the revenues, or I'm sorry, the expense side, page 214, Fund 317. So we've got 166,000
Right.
parked in reserves,
Mhm.
but we're showing a fund balance deficit of $51,000. Unless there's some overwhelming reason not to, I would say let's slide $51,000 into that. Let's meet our fund balance policy, and that still leaves us $110,000 in reserve.
We can. We currently meet our fund balance policy there anyway. We're well above that, because all we had to do was match we had to go off of the principal of 338, and we're holding at 309. And I think what's that ratio, Greg, for 1-cent sales tax? Yes, for 1 year debt. So we're at that right now. So yeah, we could reduce that. I just like to have more reserve in case something comes up, especially in roads.
Right.
'Cause I don't ever know when a storm's going to be there. I'd rather budget for it.
Well, and if we've got it in the fund balance, we could still pull it back out.
Well, I got to budget for it though.
Yeah.
That's the problem. It's in fund balance. I got to redo the budget.
Right.
That's the reason I stick a higher reserve in there.
I'd just like to see us keep working in the right direction. You know, one of the things the Charter Review Committee brought up is for us to have a fund balance policy, and then it gives us a guideline to stick to it, and
Well, we aggregate this one together as well.
Right.
came out of a $500,000 hole in our fund balance, so, and we brought it up to 51,000, so.
Oh, yeah.
I think they're on the right track.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
There's no doubt.
I would, unless there's some compelling reason, all together, we've got plenty to cover our fund balance, and we're at, when you aggregate all the 1 cent.
Countywide.
That's right.
Yeah.
But I like to have, because in roads, you don't ever know if we have a storm or whatever. I don't have to because we have to completely redo the budget instead of pulling it out of there.
I just know that it's easier for us to be tempted to go ahead and spend that money when things come up, and we're not hitting our target on our fund balances.
And, well, we need to clarify something here. Capital funds aren't supposed to have fund balances, necessarily. The only reason the capital funds have a fund balance policy is to cover your debt service for
Right.
1 year. Besides that, it's a capital fund. You
Right.
could spend it all in 1 year, and there's no need for, if you don't have any debt, there's no need to have a fund balance. There's no operating costs.
Right.
So capital funds shouldn't necessarily have a fund balance, unless you're
We
covering...
do have debt in this case.
Yes, and so as long as we're covering the one-year debt service, there shouldn't be any requirement for fund balance necessarily
Right. so-
over that.
So we-
It's not prohibited, but the 25% doesn't apply to your project side. It only applies to your debt service side.
So, Commissioner Thomas, are we talking about this debt service,
Mhm.
that we're okay with that? I mean, you're okay with that?
Well, there's enough money there. We can do that. It's just if our policy says we've got to have a year of debt service, then that means we need, roughly, $350,000 sitting in our fund balance. And we're just about 51,000 short of that. This is not going to cause us a problem that we can't deal with. The money's there. That's the good thing. But I would just like to see us have a policy where we're trying to decrease debt. We're trying to get all our fund balances exactly where they're supposed to be. It's just a target, and I know a budget's a target anyway.
Yeah, no.
But to me, we could shift 51,000, and that means, of course, you don't have that ready access in reserves, but now we've hit our fund balance like we're supposed to.
Yeah, but also understand this is in total, though, in mass, we've more than exceeded our fund balance, what we should have to cover the notes.
And
But we
notice in
but
that-
we can't pull from one category to
But
another.
at the end of the day, yeah, that's right, you can't switch, but yet, as we look at this, we look at it as in whole to make sure that we got it in mass, that we can pull it up in there. That's up to y'all. I mean, if you want to do that, that's fine. It's
I'll just stick with the
realize if
flexibility.
we're paving and we're doing stuff, it sure is nice to have some reserve while, like if we're paving Wakulla Gardens or sections of Wakulla Gardens next year, which are anticipated, we may need all of that. I don't know. I'm hoping not. I mean, no year have we spent everything that was in our 1-cent sales tax.
Right.
And you budgeted $200,000 for resurfacing, $200,000 for new paving, and $250,000 for road striping.
Right, and $150,000 for the Revel Bridge.
Now, is that
repair.
$250 that you haven't spent then on Smith Creek? Right, this is new restriping.
This is
next
new.
year.
This is new restriping, but realize y'all can change that $250. You can pull it up into roads, and you can pull it. You can use that money how you want to.
You can't
it's
use
just-
it to pave Wakulla Gardens.
Yeah, I mean you can move those $250 from road striping up and pave
I think
pave some more Wakulla
we had a
Gardens.
workshop, though, and decided it was more important to restripe safety-wise.
I know. I'm just saying, and you can move it all to road striping. You can move it all to road paving. You can move it all to bridge repair. Whatever you wanted to do. All I want to do is make sure there was funds there to do with what we need to do next
So
year.
after this budget that we do,
Mhm.
should we then still go back and pull the money to pave in Wakulla Gardens? Or we locked in?
We'll have to work within, the way this is right now, we'll have to work within $941,000.
Yes, you could.
So you could.
Yeah, you could still ship it.
We'll have $941,000. If you take the reserve, take 50 off of that, you got $900,000.
We hadn't heard a lot from Wakulla Gardens lately, but we hadn't had a storm in 3 years.
Well,
First time we have
yeah.
a storm.
It's something, though, that we need to do. We need to start taking care of that. And hopefully with the sewer that'll be coming that way, we'll be able to put some sewer in and then pave behind that is what I
You
would
gotta put the
recommend.
sewer in first. and
You
then
need
pave.
to, yes. Yeah.
I understand
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I have a question for the county administrator. In this budget, and I think I've asked you this before, but have we allocated the $400 and some odd thousand needed to move utilities on the 98-319 intersection?
No, sir, we have not, because we do not know the answer from DOT yet as to whether it will be funded by DOT or whether we'll have to come up with that, and that'll be either we fund that out of our reserves and/or we'll have to pull it out of our 1-cent sales tax.
That would be coming out of part of that $900 and some odd thousand then? That would be used to...
That's a possibility. That's where those we could pull it from there. There's a couple other sources we might be able to pull it from, but I would imagine we'll probably have to pull it from a couple of different areas.
Along those same lines, I won't bring up a sore subject, but where would you pull money from if the wetlands ordinance passes and we have to start buying land?
I might come back to you guys and we may redo another budget. Because I
And-
That would be, that's something I
haven't-
don't know about.
We had wetlands ordinances before, and we weren't buying land, so I don't know what that statement really means.
If that happens.
Well, we had wetlands ordinances before,
I
and we
don't
weren't
know
buying
about
land.
that, so.
So, back to the fund balance, if you don't mind.
Give me
Um,
something easy, Ralph.
Basically, to me, this just comes down of our philosophy and what our priorities are. My preference is we apply any money toward fund balance first, retiring debt, and then put it toward new paving, whether it be paving or parks, public service, any of the different categories in the 1 cent sales tax, public safety. And, I just think that we got a fund balance policy, we ought to try to hit it. Life or death, no, the money's there. It's not going to kill us, but why have the policy if we're not shooting a target for that? And same thing on the next page, Fund 317, we have $140,000 in surplus there, and that's in our public facilities 1 cent sales tax, and we have debt there. If and when we get to the point that we retire all this debt, we've got a lot more money. The road paving, we're bringing in about $1 million a year. Right now, looks like about $350,000, so about a third of it goes out to debt service. Not too long ago, it was quite a bit larger number, and that's coming down. And so at the point we retire that debt, then based on these figures, we've got $1 million a year that we can put directly toward paving.
Well, and you're right, but we also have to get the 1 cent sales tax renewed.
That's true. And the people have to decide if they want that.
And they'll have to decide whether they want that, and realize we put these reserve line items in there in case we have problems, such as, some of this money's, we have $39,000 in there for the jail AC replacement. And we budgeted this on purpose to spend down and leave. We purposely are leaving our principal and interest alone until if we get renewed, then you're right. I would agree. Let's chew into our principal and balance. If not, we need to spend those funds on our facilities versus chewing down that.
I know we have need. There's no doubt.
Right. You see what I mean? Is you can either go ahead and prepay it now or go ahead and spend those funds. It's a philosophy of whether you want to now or at the end.
I'd just like to see us move as best we can toward debt free, and so that's my philosophy.
And that's fine.
Yeah. And that's all I have.
I had something, Richard, if I could. Howard, going back, kind of dovetailing on what you said earlier about with ESG, 4 years, no increase, and I've been trying to get with David on what we can do for our employees. And I think a possible solution is you budgeted negative 2% on our ad valorem on revenue, right? In other words, he assumed a 2% decrease. It looks like it's not going to be that bad. It looks like it may even be flat. I had suggested that we take whatever that excess revenue that we received that we didn't budget for and give the employees, I think you suggested a mid-year 2% increase. If that comes to fruition, if actually we do collect more revenue, we'll know at that point, and then at least we can do something for the employees.
I would caveat that if we were to do that, a mid-year adjustment, it would be, number one, is based upon what the ad valorem comes in at, but secondly is make sure that right now it looks like we will meet our fund balance policy in the general fund, and also to make sure that I think the Sheriff's Department is planning to return about $400,000 to the fine and forfeiture, to their fine and forfeiture fund. Therefore, if those two things are met and the ad valorem is there, then yes, we can afford it and we can sustain it.
So
but if those aren't there, we can't afford it.
Once we meet fund balance policy, which you project we'll do by mid-year,
right?
Hopefully, and you said with the $400,000.
No, we're going to meet fund balance policy this year the way everything looks.
Right, but you may meet it. Once we've met that, you may meet that mid-year.
No. We'll know in December, a good number in December, whether we met fund balance or not. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
There'll still be some audit to go through, but it looks like we'll be there. Jail bed revenue, we'll know that early on in the first quarter of next year, of the fiscal year. And ad valorem, I want to make sure that, one, we get that in October, but I want to wait and collect those funds, so in March, in February or March, when the majority of funds are collected, then we can disperse them.
And this is not something really
Because it becomes a cash flow issue as well. Understand, I watch cash flow.
Mhm.
Therefore, I want to make sure that I'm going to give this raise at my maximum cash flow, which is around March and April.
And it's not something we need to decide or modify the budget. This would be a budget amendment that would come back in March.
If we were to do that, what we'd want to do is set aside $250,000 in a reserve line specific for that can only be touched if you guys say pull the trigger. Okay? It would be set aside and pulled out and put in there. That way we don't have to redo the budget. That way we can take it and spread the money to the sheriff's office.
That's what I would
and everything.
suggest then, and it has these caveats. It has to be, we have to come in above the projected revenue that he budgeted for, and the caveat would be fund balance and the other one.
If it can be, the fund balance, I mean, the ad valorem needs to come in at 250,000 plus.
I would support that.
But we cannot, understand, we cannot give a raise this year. We cannot give a raise based on where we sit today. We can't give a raise this year and it sustain itself. Next year, yes, and then you can sustain it every other year, but you can't.
If we start seeing some recovery in that.
That's right. If you start seeing recovery. But right now, we could give it, but we'd be in a bad shape and we'd have to cut and all that stuff. It just doesn't make any sense.
Well, I would ask then that we allow him to put that 250 in a reserve and only be used if those issues are
Well,
met.
and I'll come and recommend either we use it or not.
We'd still have to
you
vote on it
guys,
again, I guess, but it
and
just...
we won't touch that. That can't be touched.
So that brings up the question of the $400,000 for the intersection. Why aren't we line iteming that with the same thing, as if we have to use it, it's there, and if we don't have to use it?
We can do that as
Guess you
well.
could do that.
I
It
just
won't
don't,
make any
the problem is, I just don't know the timing. I don't know the timing as to, I understand what DOT says they're gonna do, and when they say when they might do it. I just don't know the timing, and I just don't know. I mean, if it's not until the fall of next year, that's next budget year. We can do that, we can set aside, we can pull a line item out, that's not a big deal.
And I would personally like to see a more realistic number on that. I've asked David to get with
Yeah.
Greg Preble. The number seems very, very, very high to me, because we've relocated utilities before for road paving and widening in Panacea, and that number just seems way high. But you're right, we reserved $500,000 for groundwater treatment here. We didn't end up using it all.
Yeah.
We're using,
Yeah.
and I don't have an issue doing that, Howard, at all.
No, and it's not a big fight for me either, but I'm just...
I just want a realistic number.
We'll
aside.
set that up. We'll pull over $400,000 for that if that's what y'all want to do.
If the state ends up paying for it, good for us.
Right.
We can move that to the
Right, at
regular
least it
reserve.
doesn't catch us.
I don't have a problem with it.
Right.
I think it's good planning, actually.
And I just want to say that I support what you was talking about with being able to give a mid-year increase, 2% increase in the event we were able to do that.
Well, I'm going to modify my motion then to include the 250 reserve that would only be used if it's come back to the board, right, David?
Mhm.
And it meets all the caveats that we mentioned earlier about hitting fund balance. And it'll come back to us before we can vote on it anyway.
You're just setting it aside.
Yeah.
That's
I'll
right.
second
Okay.
that.
It's set aside, and if we meet it, we meet it. Then
That would
you'll
be
come to
Doesn't
you guys.
obligate us to do it.
All
That's right. It
employees,
doesn't obligate you to do it, that thing. Y'all can say no, even if we meet
You
all
need to vote on
say
that?
Huh?
You need
He
to vote on
modified
that?
yeah, I modified the
We'll need
motion. We
modified.
haven't voted on the budget yet
Okay.
anyway. And what it would be is all sheriff's department, all county employees, 2% hopefully mid-year.
Well, that's what I wanted to discuss. I'm not there on the page, I don't think, of these across-the-board raises. I mean, some people are doing real well in our county, some people are really marginal. I'd like to be able to see what those salaries are, and really, if there are a population of employees that need more attention, then I'd like to see that happen rather than just across the board.
Can government agency, could you do that? Could you say, all right, Donnie, or whatever, you have $100,000 allocated to salaries, here's 20 grand, you split it up how you think it's the best way to do it. Can you do that?
be honest with you, this is the first time I've faced raises since I've been in government, so I don't know.
Is that possible?
I know in private business.
I know that's how we did
In
it.
private business, yeah, we'd say that, and then you get based upon your merit, and
Your-
some people gets nothing, and some people gets a bunch.
Based
so.
on your employee.
That's right, but I would, my thought process is here, is the majority of our employees, 95%, 98% of them, have not had a raise since 2009.
That's what I was fixing.
Okay. So, if this was something that's repetitive year over year,
2009, that was the year 2009.
that was a 1% increase. Now, am I a big fan of merit increases and dividing that up? Yes. I know that's not a governmental
That mean for me?
great thing, but I'm a big fan of that. I believe in performing high performers and getting rid of the chaff. So, excuse
And
me.
we need to also keep in mind that the same staff we're talking about suffered through the furlough
That's right.
cuts. And
That's
so,
right.
you know, they paid with their paycheck based on
Absolutely.
decisions that they didn't make.
That's right.
You know, the board
That's right.
set
And
those
if-
budgets.
like I say, I would support something else other than across the board if
Yep.
if we had given something earlier, but, you know, we got to do something to
Yeah,
give a shot.
I'm in
Cost of
favor
li-
of...
Cost of living.
Yeah,
Cost of living, I'm in favor of across the board 2% for everybody.
I'd rather
Just
call it a
share
cost
with-
of living increase than a raise, because that's sort of
Right. I'm sorry,
insulting.
I say
In
raise.
2009, to
Yeah.
give 2% and call it a raise, but I'm okay with a 2% cost of living
Yeah,
increase
that's what
for
it's called.
everyone.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Because the price of everything's higher since 2009, gas and everything.
But I'd like to also see those salaries, if we can get some, see where we stand with those salaries. You know, I don't need people's names, I don't think we need people's names, but see what the positions are, what
Hey,
the
David
salaries.
requested that.
Okay, great.
So anyway, I think we're, that's good.
I want to just make one other, not that it takes away, it shouldn't take away from the fact that our employees have not received even a cost of living raise since 2009, which is very significant. But the county has been stepping up to the plate with the significant health insurance increases that have been going on, and we've been doing a good job with that. I don't know how much longer we can continue to that pace.
In fact, I'm going to bring to you guys a proposal. Folks across the state and the country now are, and we've got to do the same thing. We can no longer chase our CHP. It's bad business. It doesn't make economic sense to chase it. What I'm going to be bringing to you is a proposal in January from here on, we'll seal off CHP increases or increases in insurance to where the county will pay X percentage, and I'm going to say 5% is what I'm going with now. Anything over that, the employee picks up. But in lieu of that, though, is we need to be able to give employee raises also on a regular basis. I don't know what percentage that is. But the county cannot continue chasing that number, okay? We just can't do it. And counties and states across the nation are starting to cap, and you can't, because we can't afford to chase it, okay? So that, I'm going to be bringing that to you as well.
Okay, I'm good.
Motion stands.
Is the second amended?
Second as modified.
And Commissioner Thomas, if you would, on the reserve items on 317,
Mm-hmm.
give us a chance to look at that, because those are tricky fund balances, and we got to remove the cash and come back and redo some stuff, because we may have put those reserves in there to cover some stuff. So let me take a look at that, and if we can do that, we'll do it. Okay?
Okay.
And I'll get up with you about that.
Okay.
That's right. And we'll just take a good comprehensive look at it, and if we can do it, we'll do it. And we'll get up with you and tell you one way or the other and show
Okay.
you. Okay?
All right.
And Greg can really put you to sleep with the details.
Hey, I love that stuff.
Okay, is there any more discussion? Okay, so we have the motion and we have a second to approve the tentative 2014-2015 countywide budget as amended by the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Okay. I want to also note that this is the second and final public hearing for approval of the final millage rate and budget will be held on Monday, September 22nd, 2014 at 6:01 p.m.
Did you get that, Brandon?
That passed 3-2. Okay. All right, very good.
Motion, oh, we got another item.
I got another item. Okay, we don't have any awards and presentations or consent or planning is on the board, but we've got one more, general business
Yeah.
item.
This item requests consideration of the of the top vendors for the professional engineering services for Otter Creek wastewater treatment plant expansion and approval to negotiate with the highest ranked firm, which is Baskerville Donovan.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion made second. Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Citizens to be heard.
We have some citizens for the second, citizens be heard.
We do.
Randy.
Got one citizen, Jerry Phipps.
Yep.
Okay.
Good evening. It's pretty much a done deal, it looks like, or I hope so. I'm from Be The Solution. My name is Jerry Phipps. I'm the president. I'm 3563 Clippy's Drive, Tallahassee, Florida. And I just wanted to let you know, and I did send you an email so that you know pretty much what we're spending here in Crawfordville. It was around $18,000 last year, and already this year we're at, I think, $19,000, and we're just up to August. So we do have a lot of need for spay neuter. So if any way that I think that you can get started getting your own income source for spay neuter, I think it's going to be beneficial. It might take a little bit of upstarting money, but intakes are going to go down because the animals are not going to just disappear. They have to be fixed at some point. And so if you can start now, even if it's small, we started our first year, we did 500 pets. And now we're up to doing roughly close to we'll do about 3,000 pets this year. And our intakes have gone down from 10,500 animals in 2009 to around 6,000 at the end of this year. That's really, I mean, it's, when you fix an animal, you fix them for life. They're never going to have another puppy or kitten. So I think it's a good step. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I used one of your vouchers one time. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Hold on,
Hold on, Commissioner, discussion.
we have
Oh, I'm
the,
sorry.
hold on, Randy. we
I
got,
keep forgetting this is a real board meeting.
it's a workshop.
is there any discussion items by commissioners?
I'd like to commend Be The Solution for their efforts in spay neuter, and also to add to that when Chat was functioning here, they were very active with spay neuter, both with grants and with their private monies.
Are they still, they're still active in that, aren't they, Howard?
They're the trap and release, they're involved with the cats right now.
Dr. Griggs gave me stories about doing 30 or 40 cats on a Saturday afternoon. And
Those are cat stories.
he's a great volunteer, by the way.
Yes, he is.
Yes.
Is there any other discussion?
I'm
by
going to make the
commissioners?
motion this time.
No.
Okay. Randy, you don't want
Do
to
it.
Discussion.
Second.
Thank you all.
Did it 3 times and screwed up every time.